Hello, everyone. I'm assuming that it's 9:30. Seeing that this is a virtual classroom, so I'm imagining a classroom. I'm imagining that everyone is present and on time. See, I have a good imagination. As I said before, we'll divide our learning into two parts. First part will be Gemara, and the second part will be Hagadda shel Pesach. We'll begin on Daf Chaf Hey Amid Aleph. And we're up to Amar Rabbi Zeira. I'm not sure what format you have. On my Gemara, it's 7 lines after they get wide, at the end of a line. Amar Rabbi Zeira ha'omer Shema Shema. Give you a few moments to find it. Chaf Hey Amid Aleph. Approximately 7 lines after they get wide. Amar Rabbi Zeira ha'omer Shema Shema. We learned in the Mishnah that if someone in middle of davening says Moedim twice, that we silence him, because it sounds like Moedim he's thanking one God, and then Moedim he's thanking another God. Why are you repeating Moedim? Reb Zeira says ha'omer Shema Shema. Whoever says Shema twice is ka'omer Moedim Moedim Dami, is the same as saying Moedim twice. Saying Moedim twice seems like you're thanking two deities, and Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad also sounds like you're praying to two different gods. So the Gemara asks a question. Meisive, the Gemara responds with a question. The Braita says Hakore, somebody who reads as Shema, Shema, v'kofla, and then doubles it, says it again, Hareza Meguna. Meguna means it's inappropriate, it's not right. But that's a milder expression. Meguna means, okay, it's not that good. Meguna hu dahavi. Meguna, shameful or inappropriate, hu dahavi is what it is. But shatuki loy mishatkin alay. Yet I wouldn't silence him. Excuse me. You said that Shema is like Moedim Moedim, and that means we would silence a person who says that. But the Braisa only says that it's Meguna. It's not right. It doesn't say we should silence him. The Gemara answers Lo Kasha, it's not a difficulty. Ha da Amar Milta Milta. Ha, this, the Amar is where he says Milta Milta, word by word. So if he says word by word, he says Shema, Shema, Yisrael, Yisrael. So there, it's not right. It's not nice to speak like that. So Had Amar, in this case, he said Milta Milta, word by word, V'tani la, and repeated it. Tani la, he repeated it again. Had Amar Psuka Psuka V'tani la. The other case is where he said the whole pasuk, and then again he said the whole pasuk and repeated it. So saying the whole pasuk once and again, Mishaskin, we silence him, because it sounds like you said the whole pasuk to one God, and then you said the whole pasuk to another God. Amalei Rav Papa. So Rav Papa said l'Rava to Rava, v'dilma perhaps, me'ikara lo'kiven date. Why do we silence somebody who said Shema Yisrael twice? V'dilma perhaps, me'ikara, from the beginning, lo kiven date. Maybe he just didn't concentrate. And the halacha is that if you didn't concentrate on the meaning of Shema Yisrael, you have to do it over again. So why are we silencing a person who says Shema again? Maybe he just didn't concentrate the first time. V'hashta now, kiven date. And now he is concentrating. So what's so terrible if somebody says Shema Yisrael the entire verse twice? Maybe he's saying it a second time because he didn't concentrate the first time. Omar Lei, so Rava said to Rav Papa, what do you mean he didn't concentrate the first time? Chavruta klapi shmaya. What is he behaving klapi shmaya towards heaven as if it's his chavruta, as if it's his friend? The first time he didn't concentrate, the second time he will concentrate. How do you daven like that? Now here comes a very odd expression. Iloi mechaven date. If he's not going to if he didn't concentrate, machinale, I would hit him ba'arzavta denafcha. I would hit him with an iron hammer ad mechaven date until he concentrates. What do you mean you didn't concentrate the first time? Iloi mechaven date. If he didn't concentrate, machinale, we would hit him ba'arzavta denafcha with an iron hammer ad mechaven date until he concentrates. So first, let me go through again what the Gemara discussed here, and then we'll explain what's obviously difficult. We learned in the Mishnah that if somebody says Maidim twice, we silence him. It sounds like he's Maidim thanking one God and he's Maidim thanking another God. Then Reb Zeir said if somebody says Shema twice, we also silence him because it sounds like he's saying Shema Yisrael to one God and Shema Yisrael to another. The Gemara responded with a question in the Braita that says if you say Shema twice, it's inappropriate. Sounds like it's only inappropriate, but not to silence him. So the Gemara said if you say each word separately, it's inappropriate. But if you say the whole sentence over again, we would silence him. Because it sounds like you're speaking to two gods. So Rav Papa asked Rava, why would you silence him? Maybe the reason why he repeated it is because the first time he just didn't concentrate. He didn't have kavanah, and now he's having kavanah. The answer is, what do you mean? The first time you didn't have kavanah, chavruta klapi shmaya, are you friends with heaven? If you didn't concentrate the first time, machinale, we would hit him barzavta denafcha with an iron hammer until he concentrates. So, what's hard to understand is, what's this business with an iron hammer? Just because somebody didn't concentrate, why would you hit him with an iron hammer? The man's a good man. Sometimes a person doesn't concentrate, and therefore he wants to say it over again. I think the meaning is, it is absolutely true that if a person didn't concentrate on the first time that he said Shema, he needs to say it over again. But you shouldn't say it out loud. Why are you announcing to one and all and everybody around that you said Shema Yisrael without concentrating? It sounds very disrespectful to be able to state something like that publicly. So therefore, for sure, if somebody didn't say Shema, if somebody said Shema and didn't concentrate the first time, he should definitely say it again, but quietly. But if he says Shema, he says Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, twice, and I can hear him say it the second time, and I ask him, what are you doing? And he says, I didn't concentrate the first time, I would say to him, we would hit him with an iron hammer, meaning figuratively. Nobody would hit somebody else. But figuratively, we would say to him, and how dare you announce that in public, that you didn't concentrate the first time. And therefore, Mishaskin and I say we would silence him. Let me read this again. Omar Reb Zeira, again, the same piece. Reb Zeira says, Ha'omer Shema, Shema. If somebody says Shema twice, Ka'omer, it's equivalent to saying Maidim, Maidim, Dummy. It's like saying Maidim, Maidim. Dummy means it is considered. It's as bad as Maidim, Maidim. So if it's as bad as Maidim, Maidim, it means that we silence him. So Mei Sivei, the tough in Aramaic is like a shin, so it's as if it would be Mei Shiv. So the Gemara responds, Ha'kaireh Shema, somebody reads Shema v'kaifla, and he does it a double time. Kefel is double, v'kaifla he doubles it. Hareza Maguna. It's not nice. It's inappropriate. Sounds like Maguna Hudahavi. It's inappropriate is what it is. But Shatuki la mishatkinale. But we wouldn't silence him. The Gemara says, Lo kasha. That's not a difficulty. There's no contradiction. Why in one place we say it's inappropriate, and the other place we say we silence him. Ha, da amar milta milta, vitanila. When we said it's inappropriate, if the amar, where he said milta milta, word by word, vitanila, and he repeats it. He repeats each word. Ha, da amar psuka psuka vitanila. In this case, where we said we silence him, is if he said the whole pasuk once, and then he said the whole pasuk again, then we silence him. Because it sounds like he's saying the sentence to two different gods. Amalei Rav Papa l'Rava, so Rav Papa says to Rava, v'dilma perhaps me'ikara, from the first place, lo kiven date, maybe the first place, he just didn't concentrate. V'hashta, now kiven date, now he's concentrating. So that's why he's saying it a second time. So why are we silencing him if a man wants to say it over again, this time with concentration? Amar lei, so Rava said to Rav Papa, Chavruta, are you being a friend, klape, towards Shemaya heaven? Ilai mechaven date. If the man was not mechaven, his mind, the first time, machinale, we would hit him, barzavta denavcha, with a hammer of a blacksmith, an iron hammer, adam mechaven date, until he concentrates. So as I explained, we don't really mean to hit anybody with a hammer on the head because he didn't concentrate the first time he said Shema. But it's totally wrong. We tell him to be silent in case he repeats it out loud. Because if he's repeating it out loud because he didn't concentrate the first time, it sounds disrespectful to announce in public that I didn't concentrate the first time, so I'm saying it again. We learned in the Mishnah that somebody who's teaching Parshias Achrei Ma'asim Kedoshim, which has to do with prohibited sexual activities, so instead of explaining exactly what we're referring to incest, we're referring to intercourse, somebody uses a metaphor. And if he uses a metaphor, we silence him. Because when you're teaching something, you have to teach it properly, clearly, articulately. So the Mishnah says, Hamachane ba'arayot, somebody who uses a metaphor when he is describing arayot, prohibited sexual activity, Meshatken also, we silence him. Tana, we learned in a Braita, Rav Yosef taught, Kolon aviv v'kolon imo. When the pasuk says that ervas imecho lo tegale, you should not reveal the shame of your mother, what it really means is, God forbid, somebody has a relationship with his mother. But he translates it, le segale ervat imecha, don't repeat something shameful about your mother. Like you'll say, my mother cooked something and it didn't come out well. So he says that loy segale ervas imecha, do not reveal the shame of your mother, means don't reveal a shameful incident about your mother. That's how he translates it. So then we silence him. Why? Because that's not what it means. It really means that a person should not, God forbid, have relations with a mother or any other relative. The last part of the Mishnah was, there is a pasuk in the Torah, Umizaracha lo titen lahaver lamolech. What that pasuk means is, don't hand your children over to the priests of Molech. The priests of Molech used to take a child and pass the child between fires. According to one explanation, the child was actually immolated, burnt to death. Another pshat, it was just passed between the fires. However it is, it's a form of idol worship, and it's prohibited to give your child to be used in this form of idol worship. A person who's teaching that pasuk chumash, and he translates it totally differently. He translates umizaracha, from your children, lo sitan, you should not give, laha'avir, to make pregnant, lamolech, he mistranslates into a Gentile woman. Don't allow your child to impregnate a Gentile woman, meaning don't let your child intermarry with a Gentile woman. So instead of translating mizaracha, your child, lo sitan, you should not give lahaver to pass lamolech by the fires of Molech, he translates mizaracha, your children, lo sitan, you should not allow lahaver to impregnate lamolech, a Gentile woman. So there we silence him and we shout at him. The reason why we shout at him is because if a man has relations with a Gentile woman, it's biblically prohibited. It's a lotase, it's a prohibition, it's a plain prohibition. But worshipping Avodah Zarah is a sin which is punishable by capital punishment. So therefore, if he translates the pasuk to say, don't allow your child to intermarry, and the punishment for it would be capital punishment, then he's giving capital punishment, which the pasuk says, for somebody who allows his child to intermarry. That's incorrect, because intermarriage is not a capital offense. It's prohibited biblically, but it's not a capital offense. Avodah Zarah is. So since he is translating the pasuk improperly, he's also imposing capital punishment for a case which is only a prohibition. So the Gemara says, Ha'omer, if somebody says, Umizaracha lo sitein lahavir lamolech, don't allow your child to pass by the Avodah Zarah of Molech, he translates it differently, then we silence him and we shout at him. The Mishnah says, Meshasken oto benazifa, you silence him with a shout. Tana debei Rabbi Shmuel, it was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel, Bi Yisrael haba akutit. We're talking about a Jew who will have relations with a Gentile woman, v'holid mimena ben, and make her give birth to a son, la'avodah zarah, who will then worship avodah zarah, hakatuv medaber. That's what the pasuk is talking about. Mizaracha, your child lo sita, and you shouldn't allow lahaver to make pregnant a woman who's going to have a child lamolech for avodah zarah. I always wondered, and I'm not sure about the answer, why is it that when somebody uses a metaphor for sexually prohibited relationships, we silence him? Because you have to teach clearly. So we said, what did that mean? That instead of saying that the Torah is talking about a sexually prohibited act, don't repeat shameful things about your mother. Don't say that your mother did something which was shameful. And there it only says we silence him. Yet in the second case, where somebody translates Mizaracha lo sitin lahaver lamolech, don't allow your child to make pregnant a Gentile woman, then we silence him with a shout. Why? Because he made a prohibition of a man having relations with a Gentile woman, he turned it into a capital offense. Well, what about the first case? The first case, saying something shameful about one's mother, could be a lack of kibud aim. It could be perhaps motzi shemra, defamation, but it's also not a capital offense. So if the Torah says that ervas imecha lo tegale, and it's a capital offense, and you translate it's repeating something shameful, then there too you have taken something which is merely prohibited and given it a capital offense. Why there don't we shout at him when we silence him? I'm just suggesting that in the first case, where somebody says ervas imecha lo tegale, don't reveal the shame of your mother, if that's how he says it, I think people will understand what it means. Don't reveal the shame of your mother. People will understand that he's using a metaphor because he doesn't feel comfortable saying it clearly. But nevertheless, we still silence him. One should speak clearly. But in the second case, people will think that he's serious. If somebody has a relationship with a Gentile woman and then she has a child which will worship avodah zarah, it's a capital offense. So therefore in the second case we silence him with a shout. In the first case we merely silence him, because in the first case people may understand that of course the Torah was not giving capital punishment for somebody who just defamed his mother. The Mishnah is going to tell us that in the olden days, when there was Kriyat HaTorah, there was a Balkoreh who read, and there was someone next to him who translated what the Balkoreh read. And some parshiyos in the Torah were read but not translated, and we'll see in the Gemara why. Certain things were read and translated, certain things were not even read publicly. Today we don't have translation anymore, and everything is read. So first we'll just learn the Mishnah as to which things are read and translated, read and not translated, or perhaps not read at all. And then in the Gemara we'll see the reasons for that. Masa Ruvain, the story of Ruvain. Now the Torah says that Ruvain slept with Bilhah, his father's concubine. By the way, we know that doesn't really mean that Ruvain slept with Bilhah, his father's concubine, but rather the story was that when Ruvain's mother Leah died, when Rachel died, Yaakov Avinu took his bed out of Rachel's tent and put it into Bilhah's tent. Bilhah had been Rachel's maid, and when Rachel died, Yaakov took his bed out of Rachel's tent and put it into Bilhah's tent. Reuven felt that his mother Leah was humiliated, that if Yaakov kept his bed usually in Rachel's tent and not in Leah's, but at least when Rachel has died, Yaakov should have put his bed into Leah's tent, and instead he put it into the maid Bilhah's tent. So Reuven took the bed out from Bilhah's tent and put Yaakov's bed into his mother Leah's tent. So that's the story. That's really what happened, but the pasuk says that Reuven slept with Bilhah, his father's concubine. So Masa Reuven, that story of Reuven, Nikra, is read v'lo metargim, it's not translated. Masa Tamar, the incident of Tamar with Yehuda, Nikra is read umetargim, it is translated. Masa Egel, the story of the golden calf, Horishain, the first retelling of the story when the incident happened, Nikra is read, Umetargim, and it is translated. Vasheni, but the second repetition of the story, when Aaron tells Moshe what happened, Nikra, that is read, Velo Metargim, and not translated. Birchat Kohanim, the brachas of Yevarechacha, Yor, and Yisa, Mase David ve'Amnon, the story of David and Amnon, where Amnon raped David's daughter, Amnon's sister Tamar, those are Nikroin v'lo metargimin, are read and not translated. Ein maftirin b'merkava. The first chapter in Sefer Yechezkel talks about God's chariot. It's Kabbalistic things beyond our comprehension. So therefore, you don't make a haftorah in Navi of that first chapter in Sefer Yechezkel. Rabbi Yehuda Matir, Rabbi Yehuda allows you to say the haftorah in the Sefer Yechezkel, Perik Aleph. Rabbi Eliezer says, Ein maftirin b'hodas Yerushalayim. Do not say the haftarah of Hodas Yerushalayim. It's a haftarah which describes all the averis and all the bad things that Yerushalayim did. And we don't want to publicly read a haftarah that talks about Hodas Yerushalayim. So in short, the Mishnah said that the story of Ruvain, we read, we do not translate. The story of Tamar, we read and translate. The first telling of the Egel, of the golden calf that happened, is read and translated, but the second repetition of the story, when Aaron tells Moshe what happened, is read and not translated. Birchat Kohanim, the story of David and Amnon, when Amnon violated his sister Tamar, we read those, and we don't translate. We totally do not read the Masa Merkava, the story of Hashem's chariot in the first chapter of Yechezkel. Rabbi Yehuda allows it. Rabbi Eliezer says, we do not read the haftorah of Hoda as Yerushalayim. Gemara Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught in the Braita, Yesh Nikrim and Targumen, some things are read and translated. Yesh Nikrim v'lo metargumen, some things are read and not translated. And V'yesh lo Nikrin v'lo metargumen, and some we will neither read nor translate. Elu Nikrin u'metargumen. The following portions of Torah are read and translated, and there's a simon Beis Lamed Tov Ayin Kuf Nun Nun Shin Pei Hey. Each letter stands for another case. The bet stands for Masa Bereshis, the story of creation. Nikra is read umetargim, and it's translated. The Gemara says Pshita. It's obvious. Remember the word Pshita. Remember Ma'od. It's going to come over and over again. Pshita, it is obvious that the story of creation should be read and translated. And the Gemara explains, Mahu Detema, perhaps we should say, Atu, people will come, Lishayule, to ask, Malamala, Malamata, what's above the above, and what's below the below? Malafanim, what's before the beginning, Malachar, and what's after the end? Let me explain. We know that there is time and there is space. But when you start studying creation, you start studying the beginning of time and the beginning of space. But we start to wonder, but what's before the beginning of time? What's beyond the beginning of space? Well, there we start talking about the infinite, and the infinite is God. And we cannot comprehend God because God is infinite. Our mind cannot, we can translate infinite, but we cannot comprehend infinite. We can't grasp it. So what's going to happen if you start perhaps teaching creation is people will start wondering, okay, but what was before that? Or what's beyond that? And you're not going to be able to figure it out. So perhaps you'll create something and say, and that creation that I created in my mind, that's God. But that's blasphemy, because God cannot be described either in time or in space. So therefore I fear if you're going to teach creation, people will start delving or stretching into the areas of the impossible to explain. And they'll make something up and call it God. So therefore I would think maybe we should not read or translate Parshas Bereshis, Kamash Malan, so it lets us hear that you're welcome to read and translate Masa Bereshis, and we're not concerned that someone is going to ask those questions. Masa Lot Ushtei Benoisav, the story of Lot and his two daughters, where they were alone in a cave after Sodom was overturned. Lot had relations with his two daughters. Nikra, it is read, Umitargim, and it's translated. Pshita, of course it should be read and translated. The Gemara says, Mahu Detema, again, perhaps we should say, Nechush, watch that word nechush. We're going to have it over and over again. We should be concerned. Lichvodo d'Avram, about the honor of Avram, that his nephew Lot and his two granddaughters did such a disgusting act. So maybe for the honor of Avram, perhaps it should not be read or maybe not translated. Komash Malan, we can read it and we translate it. Masa Tamar v'Yehuda, the story of Tamar and Yehuda, Nikra, can be read, umitargim, and translated. Pshita, of course it should, why not? Mao de Tema, perhaps we should say, Lechush lechvodo de Yehuda. Maybe I should be concerned about the dignity of Yehuda and not to translate the story. Kamashmalana teaches us, Shivachei, hu de'odei, that it is actually the praise of Yehuda that he admitted to his sin. We've discussed that in class many times, that although what Yehuda did was not right, but nevertheless the fact that he admitted to it and had the courage to admit to it is to his credit and to his favor. And that is why Yaakov Avinu, in the end, trusted Yehuda with royalty. He said, you will be the source of royalty in the Jewish people. Because only someone who has the courage to admit when he makes a mistake is someone who deserves to be trusted with power. Masa Egel Rishon, the first telling of the golden calf, is Nikra read and Matargum and translated. Pshita, isn't that obvious? Mor says, Mahu Detema, perhaps we should say, Lechish, we should be concerned, Lichvodam Shal Yisrael. We should be concerned for the dignity of the Jewish people. They're going to be embarrassed when they hear the story of the golden calf read. Komash Malana teaches us, Kol Shekain, all the more so, the Nichalahu, they would be willing that the story of the Egel should be read and translated, the Havyalahu Kapara, because if they feel embarrassed about the story, so this will be an atonement for what they did. It's an amazing idea. The Jewish people who in last week's Parsha learned Kitisa, the story of the Egel, Jewish people who read it are supposed to feel embarrassed. And the embarrassment that we feel that the Jewish people could have done something like that is part of our kapara. I remember once I was in a synagogue, a non-Orthodox synagogue, and I was in the hallway and I saw a painting of a golden calf and people dancing around it. The artist painted a picture of the story of the golden calf. And I looked at it and I was shocked, and I said, I'll bet that the artist was not Jewish. And I checked afterwards and found that the artist had not been a Jew. Because a Jewish person would not feel comfortable in painting a painting of the golden calf with the Jews dancing around it. This is our embarrassment. This is our humiliation that we did a thing like that. And when it's read in the Torah, a Jew who's very sensitive may feel humiliated, but certainly no Jew will feel comfortable in painting such a painting. And the ignoramus who hung it up on the wall also has something to answer for. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to go through the Gemara from the beginning again, word for word in English. Going back to Amar Reb Zeira. Rabbi Zeira said that one who says Shema, Shema is like one who says Modim, Modim. Dummy, it is considered. It's equally bad, and one would silence him. The Gemara Meitive responds with a question. One who reads Shema and V'kofla and repeats it, it's Meguna, it's inappropriate. Sounds like Meguna Hudavi, it's only inappropriate. But silence, we will not silence him. So when do we silence him, and when is it just inappropriate? And the Gemara says, Lo kasha, it's not difficult. If he said it milta, word by word, it's inappropriate. V'tani la, and to repeat it. But if he said psuka, verse by verse, and repeated it, then we silence him, because it sounds like he's speaking to two gods. So Rav Papa said to Rava, and perhaps Me'ikara from the beginning, he didn't concentrate his mind, and now he is concentrating his mind. So Rava answered, is he a chavruta, is he a friend towards heaven? Ilo mechavn date, if a man didn't concentrate the first time, machinale, I would hit him, ba'arzavta denapcha, with a blacksmith's hammer, until he actually concentrates. As I explained, it doesn't literally mean you'll hit anybody with a hammer. It just means I'm very upset with him that he didn't concentrate the first time. Because although it's human sometimes not to concentrate, but not to make a public display of it by saying Shema again out loud. If someone uses a metaphor for arayot, for sexual things, we silence him. Rav Yosef taught in a brayso that he says it's the shame of his father and the shame of his mother, but he doesn't describe exactly what it is. And if someone says Mizaracha lo titein lahavir, he mistranslates it, then we silence him with a shout. Tana, it was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel that it's a Jew who had relations with a Kutit, a Gentile woman, and gives birth from her a son for Avodah Zarah. That's what the pasuk is referring to. So we silence him with a shout because he took intermarriage, having relations with the Gentile woman, and turned it into a capital offense, where actually the pasuk is talking about idol worship. The story of Ruvain is read and not translated. The story of Tamar is read and translated. The story of the Egel, the first story of the Egel, when it happened, we read it and translate it. And the second one is read and not translated. Now, we haven't gotten to all the explanations yet. Birchat Kohanim and the story of David and Amnon is read and not translated. Ein maftirin, you don't do a haftorah b'merkava, the chariot of God, the first parak in Yechaskel. Rabbi Yehuda allows it. Rabbi Eliezer says you don't do a haftorah of Hoda at Yerushalayim, the haftorah that talks about announce to Yerushalayim all of its shameful acts. The rabbis taught in the Braita, sometimes things are read and translated, some are read not translated, and some are neither read nor translated, and the following 10 cases are read and translated, and the siman is Beis Lametaf, Ayin Kuf Nun, Nun Shin Pei Hey. The story of creation is read and translated. The Gemara asked Pshita, isn't that obvious? The Gemara answered, Ma'u D'Tema, maybe we should say, Atu, they'll come to ask. And what's above the above? And what's below the below? And what came before the before, and what came after the after. So that the Kamash Malon, it lets us hear that I'm not concerned about that, and you can read and translate it, and I'm not afraid that people will try to describe the infinite and make a mistake in the description of God. The story of Lot and his 2 daughters is read and translated. Pshita, it's obvious, but maybe we should say, I should be concerned for the respect and honor of Avram, who was Lot's uncle. So the Braita teaches us that we're not concerned, and we read it. Avram was not responsible for Lot's behavior. The story of Tamar and Yehuda is read and translated. Pshita, isn't that obvious? Perhaps Ma'u D'Tema, should we say, Leichish, we should be concerned for the honor of Yehuda, that he did such a thing. Kamash Malan, it lets us hear, Shvochehu, it is his praise, the Ode that he admitted it. All the more praise to him and power to him that he was willing to admit that he messed up. The first telling of the Egel is read and translated. Pshita, that's obvious. Why shouldn't you read it? The answer is, Ma'u D'Tema, should we say, Lechush, let us be concerned. Lekvodan Shal Yisrael, the respect of the Jews, and it's humiliating that they made a golden calf. Komash Malan, it teaches us, the Kolshken Denichalu, it's all the more so that they prefer you to read that, because the Havyule Kapora, that way they get forgiven. I'm going to pause now from Gemara and go to some Hagadda Shel Pesach. I'm going to deal with questions that have been asked in previous years, because usually that's what I do. I tell the students to ask questions, and then I answer them if I know the answer, and that's how I teach the Hagadda. As I explained to you in class many times, there's a reason why I do it that way. When a person asks a question, there's an iboyaluhu. In Aramaic, iboya means a need, and iboyaluhu means they asked. Because if somebody asks, he has a need to know. One who asks a question has a need to know, and then when the answer is given, that need to know is satisfied. That satisfaction of a need to know makes the information penetrate much more deeply. It's something that you needed, and something that you needed when you acquire it with greater depth. That's why it's very important to ask why. Because sometimes if you need to know an address, that's a what, or you need to know the name of a person, that's a who. That's useful, but to know the reason why, that's more than just useful, that's satisfying. There is no night more important than the night of Pesach, where a parent should teach a child why. Why are we Jewish? What is our history? Why does it matter? Um, I apologize, I keep moving my phone around, and that's why it's jumping around. I need to find a steady place to hold it. So that's why, when on this night parents transmit to their children our history and our reason for being Jewish, and what it means to say Asher Bochar Bana Mikol Amim, that God chose us from all the nations, that information may go over the children's head if they don't really feel a need to know. That's why in the Torah, in 4 places, the Torah taught about teaching the children about Yetzias Mitzrayim. And in 3 of the places, it actually tells us there's a question. The Chacham says, what are all the mitzvot that Hashem commanded you? Explain them to me. Even the Rasha, in his hostile question of why are you bothering with this work? He's also asking a question, even though it sounds like it's a rhetorical question, and he's claiming that it's just idle work and it's not important, but behind it all, he really is also longing for a need to know. And even the Tam, who simply asks, Mazos, what is this? He also has a need to know. The only one who doesn't ask is the She'eni Yedei Lishol, the one who doesn't know how to ask. But nevertheless, we teach all 4 of them. And that's why in the Seder, it's set up as questions and answers. It's, you ask the Manishtana. And we do many things at the Seder night which are unusual. And one that is supposed to arouse the curiosity of the children. Some of those questions, some of those curious things that we do arouse the curiosity we don't really have an answer to. Like, eating karpas. In truth, there's no great reason for eating karpas except because we want the children to ask. And once the children have started to ask and we've opened the floodgates of questioning, we ask them, is there anything else you want to know about? And if they ask about the matzah, and they ask about the murr, and they ask about the Seder, and they ask about the Hagadda, then we have a chance to fill that need and actually transmit to them our heritage. One of the questions that's often asked in the beginning is, what is the big problem with chametz? Like, why are we so ballistic about chametz? I mean, we understand matzah. Matzah is good because matzah is what we took out when we left Egypt, so it commemorates our exodus. But why are we so upset about chametz, that we clean it, and we eradicate it, we burn it, we don't want it? There are 2 ways to explain it. In one way, which I believe is a Ridvaz, he says it more in a supernatural explanation. He says that chametz and matzah are very similar to each other. In fact, the letters are the same, except chametz is with a ches and matzah is with a hey. And the difference between them is just a tiny little spot where the hey is open and the ches is closed. And actually, chametz and matzah are the same. They're both flour and water, except that chametz was given a chance to rise, to leaven, and matzah was not given a chance to rise, to leaven. But they're really both the same. Yet they're so diametrically opposed that on Pesach we have a mitzvah to eat matzah, and it's a terrible sin to eat chametz. So what is the difference between chametz and matzah? The ingredients are the same. What's another interesting thing is that matzah doesn't spoil. You can keep matzah around. But chametz, if you leave it around bread, it becomes moldy. Flour and water, if you bake it quickly, it becomes matzah. But if you leave it around, the bacteria in it will start to work, and it starts to leaven. And when it starts to leaven, it starts creating air pockets in it, and it starts to rise, and it starts to bubble. So chametz is really matzah, except it's matzah with an attitude. It became very, so to speak, full of itself. Matzah doesn't spoil, because purity doesn't spoil. Flour and water doesn't spoil. Chametz, the moment there is feelings of grandeur, there's attitude, there you're feeling things that you're not entitled to, and you're blowing yourself up more than you really should. And that's where the problems become. That's where decay can get in, and that's where bacteria can come in, and that's where mold can come in. There's a Gemara in Brachos that one of the Amayroim at the end of Tefillah said, Rabbeinu Shalom, we want to do your will. What stops us from doing your will is the Sa'or Shaba'isa, the leavening in the dough. Basically, we are human beings, and as human beings, we should want to do only things that are right, and only things that are effective, and only things that are good, and what Hashem wants us to do. But it's because we start developing attitude of, I want to do it my way, and I know better, and this is what I feel like. So that's where the chametz starts. So therefore, on Pesach, we want to demonstrate the purity of the matzah, and therefore we abhor the leavening of the chametz. There is perhaps another explanation. You should know that there are two ways how to illustrate something. One way is to promote it, to promote the object you want to promote. Another way is to suppress everything around it, so that the thing you want to promote now sticks out because you've suppressed everything around it. Like for instance, take it's called embossing. Let's say if you take a look at a coin, the picture is embossed. Everything around the picture has been suppressed, and now the picture comes out. Hashem wants us very much to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's when God introduced Himself to the Jewish people. It's when we recognize God, and therefore everything is Zeicher Yetzias Mitzrayim, and we make such a big effort to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim, and the matzah is the symbol of Yetzias Mitzrayim. But how can we accentuate the matzah? So if we just push something, sometimes when you push, you get pushback. A great way to teach something is not so much by pushback. Sometimes a great way to teach is by suppressing everything around it, so that the middle that you didn't even touch now comes out towards you, so that the student can grasp it. It's grasped without pushing it at him. It's grasped because everything else has been diminished. So the same thing when Hashem wanted to emphasize the importance of matzah, He told us to depress and suppress chametz. There is no chametz. There can be nothing. There can be no chametz. We clean out the chametz, a mashu of chametz, even a grain, a speck. We're very machmer against chametz. No. So once we have depressed and suppressed all the chametz, so what really sticks out? What becomes the cover of every booklet that's put out on Pesach? A picture of the matzah. What made the picture of the matzah so prominent was the suppression of all the chametz. We know that the Seder night is called a Seder. Why is it called a Seder? Seder means an order. There are two reasons why the Seder of Pesach is called an order. One is because there are a lot of mitzvahs this night. There's the mitzvah of matzah, which is a biblical mitzvah. There's 4 cups of wine, which are rabbinic mitzvahs. There's the telling of Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is a biblical mitzvah. There's the washing of the hands, which is a biblical, in this case it would be a minhag, which we'll explain at a later time. There's karpas, which is a minhag. There's charoset, which is a minhag. So we have minhagim, we have rabbinic laws, we have biblical laws. One would make a mistake and say, okay, so I have to eat matzah and I have to drink wine, so let's go. I'll wash, I'll eat the matzah, and then I'll make kiddush, and I'll drink a cup of wine, then I'll wash, I'll eat the matzah, and I'll drink 3 more cups of wine, and let's get on with it. It's not that way. Everything needs to be done in a Seder. There's an order. Of course, first you make Kiddush, and then before we wash for the meal, we tell the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim over the matzah, and then we wash, and then we do the mitzvah derais of matzah. Everything has to be in order, so that we don't just chug-a-lug 4 cups of wine and just wolf down the matzah. There's another reason why it's called a Seder. Very often in the world, things happen, and you think that they happen, they're random. Actually, that's what Amalek wanted to teach us. Asher karcha baderech, he wanted to teach us that he happened to run into you on the way. Everything is mikra, things just happen. Nothing just happens. The world was created in a Seder. It was created in order. There were 10 Vayomers in Bereshis, from Vayomer Yehi Or to Vayomer Elokim Nasa Adam, from light until man. And every single step of the way was in order. And the Aseres Adibros, from the first, from Anochi until the end, everything has an order, and everything has a reason. And the Makkos had an order. There's a reason why Dam came first, when Hashem attacked the Nile, the deity of Egypt, and the water of Egypt, and went on to Tzfardeya and Kinim and Orov. There's a reason why each Makkah was chosen. It was Midah Keneged Midah. It was measure for measure of what the Egyptians did to the Jews. And the order that they were given is also an important order. So therefore, the night of Pesach is to recognize God, and to recognize that when God runs the world, there is no mayhem, there is an order. Sometimes we don't understand the order, and therefore we tend to think that there is disorder and there's chaos, but there isn't. There really is a Seder, there's an order. So the reason it's called a Seder is because the mitzvahs of the night are done in a particular Seder, and so that we recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world in a Seder and does everything in a Seder, and Yetzias Mitzrayim also was in a Seder. It is interesting that the simanim of the Seder, there are 15 simanim, and the first one is Kadesh. There's a mitzvah to make Kiddush. Maybe we'll talk about that the following day. Why do we make Kiddush? And is Kiddush on Yom Tov? Is it from the Torah or is it from the Rabbanon? But we have to do Kiddush, and that's why if we have 4 cups of wine, we allocate them. The first one is a cup of wine for Kiddush. The second is a cup of wine over which we make the bracha of Goal Yisrael, having said Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. The third cup is the cup of wine over which we do Birkas Hamazon, and the fourth cup of wine is the cup that we do Hallel on. Each cup has its place, and everything has a Seder. After Kadesh comes Urchatz. Urchatz means we wash our hands. Chassidish Sfarim wrote that really the order should be Urchatz. It says in Tehillim, Sur Meira, you should remove the evil, and Vasei Tov, and only then do good. You have to first remove the evil before you do the good. You don't do the good and then remove the evil later. So it should have been Urchatz, to wash, to remove any soil or any unclean, and then Kadesh, and then sanctify. Shouldn't you wash before you sanctify? But the problem is, if you're going to try to wash before you sanctify, sometimes we're so deep in that it's hard to wash. It's hard to get it all off. So God does it the other way around. He says, you know what? Before you wash, I'm going to give you a nice suit of clothes. I'm going to give you something very special. I'm going to give you mitzvahs that make you holy. And once you see the suit of clothes I give you, once you see the holiness I give you, you'll be motivated to then wash. When we were in Egypt, we were there in 49 levels of Tumah. And God gave us mitzvahs right at the outset. God gave us the mitzvah of Pesach. God gave us the mitzvah of Milah. Asher kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu al amila. Asher kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu al achilat Pesach. He sanctified us with those mitzvahs. And only then did we have 49 days of rechatz, of removing level after level, one level of tumah, and replacing it with a level of kedusha. Because sometimes to demand from people to clean their uncleanliness before they put on holiness is too hard. We end up stirring the mud and stirring the mud and stirring the mud, never quite cleaning it. So therefore, at the Seder night, we say, Kadesh Urachatz. Hashem sanctified us before He asked us to wash. Hashem elevated us before He asked us to rise from our lowly levels. Because when He elevates us, we are motivated to rise ourselves. And we hope, there's a pasuk, He made Seischa me'eretz Mitzrayim er'ena niflaot. The way God took us out of Egypt, Hashem will show us wonders in the future. That no matter what we look like, and no matter what we've done, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will suddenly start appearing to us and show Himself to us and make us feel like an Am HaNivchar, a chosen people. And the more we feel like a chosen people, the more we will rise to the occasion to behave like a chosen people. I'm stopping a little bit early. I'm not sure how well this worked. I hope you learned. I hope you review. I hope that the boys amongst yourselves choose a chavruta to review the Gemara. Use your time well. Make this period of time that we are stuck alone at home the most useful, great time that we've ever had in education. Because now is really the test of what you yourself are made of, what I am made of. What can I do during this time? What can you do during this time? There's no one really dictating to us. There is no school. There is no formal structure. Therefore, now you can do 100 times more, because whenever there is push, there's always push back. Here, there's no push. If there's no push, you're welcome to run to success with all your energy. I wish you all to stay healthy, and I'm going to record another shiur in Navi for the grade 11 boys. There will be also voluntary shiurim being recorded on Chumash Rashi and on after-school learning. Be well, kol tov to you.